And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Friday, April 4th. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into all that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, gsmcpodcast.net. That is gsmcpodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. We are going to preview and predict the Final Four matchups between Florida and Auburn and Houston and Duke. I'll give you my picks. And, so we're coming down towards the end here of this tournament. Then the national championship is, of course, on Monday. So can't wait for that. So that's what we'll start off with. Then in the second part of the show, we will talk about last night's game between the Warriors and the Lakers. Warriors picking up the win there. It was a very entertaining game. I did tune in towards the end of the first half, but I did watch the entire second half, and it was an entertaining finish, especially with the shooting from the players. Austin Reeves was on fire towards the end of the game, but it was too little, too late for the Lakers. The Warriors picked up the win, so we'll talk about that. We'll also get into talking about a couple extensions in the NFL, a couple of contract extensions. Geno Smith picking up a 2-year extension with the Raiders. We'll talk about Trey McBride as he signs the largest contract extension by a tight end ever in the NFL. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about the Dodgers getting off to this 8-0 start, and do they have the potential to be the greatest team ever? So we'll get into that conversation. And then in the final part of the show, we will continue our season overviews, and today we will be covering the Chargers. We'll go over their season, what they have done in the offseason, and all that. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Final Four. So we've come down to this. It's 3 games left. We got the 2 games tomorrow, and we also have the national championship game on Monday. And all 4 1 seeds have advanced to the Final Four. It's the first time that has happened since 2008. We did mention that on one of the shows earlier this week, but it's set up for 2 very good games. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm more excited for the Florida-Auburn game than I am for the Duke-Houston game. I feel like the Florida-Auburn game definitely can have a dramatic finish to it, in my opinion. I feel like I think Duke could run away with the game against Houston. Now, I could be completely wrong on this, and you're probably wondering, oh, you're wearing blue in support of Duke. No, it just so happens that this is the shirt that I'm wearing today. But yes, I do have Duke winning the national championship, and I need that for my bracket group in order to win it. So yes, I do have some wager on Duke winning. That would benefit me. But looking at the 2 games though, I had Florida, no, I didn't have Florida. I had Auburn getting knocked out pretty early in the tournament. I had them getting knocked out in the round of 32 against Creighton. Now, that did not happen, but I have been very impressed with Auburn. Janai Broome has had a very good tournament. Pettiford has had a really good tournament as well. They have, and they struggled down the stretch in the regular season. So I was kind of on that wave, like, okay, they're not going to make a run. But they have played exceptionally well, and they're going to be a tough out. And, Florida, you look at Florida, they were down against Texas Tech. And then it took a barrage of 3-pointers to get them back in the game with, not much time left. And they were able to pull off the comeback. But, they have played well, too. They knocked out the defending champion, 2-time defending champion, UConn Huskies. But, yeah, that's, Walter Clayton Jr., that's one of the players you got to pay attention to. for this game. He's the key offensive guy. But I think this could be the better game of the two. Now, I'm going to be honest. You got two, and by the way, two SEC teams going at it. Going back to the previous matchups, I want to take a look at those for a second. So, Florida and Auburn, they played, the last time they played against each other, you have to go back to February 8th. They played against each other. And Florida won that game 90-81. And in that game, Clayton Jr. had 19 points for Auburn. Janai Broom had 18. Pettifer off the bench had 14. And then I think they played each other. Oh, they only played each other once this past season, in the regular season. So yeah, that was the one time they matched up against each other during the year, and Florida got the best of them. But I'm kind of leaning towards Auburn in this game. I don't know. I've been paying more attention to Auburn, I guess, just because Florida. I haven't really had to, other than the Texas Tech game, I obviously had Florida in my Final Four, but I didn't watch their first round game against Norfolk State. I did pay attention to the UConn game. That was a very entertaining game. Maryland, that game was close in the beginning, but they pulled away. Texas Tech, obviously, that game, again, it took great shooting at the end to come back and win that. So, I don't know. I just like how Auburn's been playing. And I'm kind of leaning towards taking them in this game. Now, Florida is a 2.5-point favorite. But I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards Auburn to go all the way. They knocked off a couple of Big Ten teams in Michigan and Michigan State. I had Michigan State in my championship game. Unfortunately, that did not happen. I took a little bit of a risk. Creighton, like I said, that was the team I had knocking off Auburn. That didn't happen, and they, won by 20 against Alabama State. But yeah, the final two games of the regular season, they lost to Texas Tech or Texas A&M, and then they lost to Alabama in overtime. So and then they lost in the SEC conference tournament. So, some people weren't too high on them going into the tournament, but they have played really well. So I am going to take Auburn to win. I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to be very entertaining. It's going to be close. But I think Auburn squeaks by and advances. And then we got Houston and Duke. Duke has played, I think, the best. You look at what they've done to... Arizona, they won by 7. They put up 100 points in that game. But, I think the win against Alabama was really impressive just because, Alabama's a really good team. And we saw the amount of threes that they shot and made in their win against, who was it against? Oh, against BYU. They put up 113 points in two halves. They shot... What was it? They made 25 threes. And then they go up against Duke, and Duke beats them by 20. And they only made 8 threes in that game. So, and Houston, they were up big against Tennessee. They kind of let Tennessee get back in the game a little bit. And, also, it was a close game against Purdue. Gonzaga almost pulled off a comeback against them. They've had to grind out some of these wins, whereas I feel like with Duke, they really haven't had to do that in this tournament. They beat up on Mount St. Mary's. They beat up on Baylor. Arizona, yes, the game was a little bit close, but, Duke was never in jeopardy of losing that game. And then Alabama. So, and they have the best player in Cooper Flagg. But Houston is a very good team. I did talk about LJ Cryer, I think, earlier in the week. he had 30 points against Gonzaga, then he had 5 points against Purdue, and then he had 17 against Tennessee. So which LJ Cryer are we going to get in this game for Houston? I just feel like Duke is the best team. I'm obviously picking them to advance to the national championship game. So when the dust settles, I have Duke and I have Auburn making the tournament. So yeah, that's how I see it going. But, could be wrong. We could see an upset. But that's how I see things playing out. Duke and Auburn for the national championship when we get to Monday. So let me know what you guys think, though, about that. Who do you have winning these games? Let me know in the comments. We also do have the women's tournament going on as well, which I really haven't talked about. The Final Four is today. You got Texas and South Carolina for the first game, and then you have UConn against UCLA. Both of those games will be on ESPN, and you actually have 3 of the 4 teams are 1 seeds. UConn is the only number 2 that's in the Final Four. So that's going on as well. And like I said, tomorrow is the men's Final Four. And the first game is 6:09 p.m. Eastern Time, Florida against Auburn. And then 8:49 p.m. Eastern Time is Houston against Duke. Both games are on CBS. So it should be a great weekend for basketball. Yeah, and then, NBA playoffs are right around the corner. So speaking of the NBA, we are going to take our first break of the show. And then when we come back, we will talk about the game last night between the Lakers and the Warriors. We'll talk about that when we return. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, and for the second part of the show, we are now going to talk about the Warriors-Lakers game from last night. Entertaining game. Warriors did pick up the win last night, and this was in LA. Like I said, I tuned in towards the end of the first half, but I watched the majority of the second half. So a couple things from Anthony, one of the show regulars in the chat. He said, since you've been watching the tournament the whole time, who is the best hybrid point guard either playing currently or that you saw in the tournament? Well, I got to say, one of the players I really like is Pettiford for Auburn. He has had a great tournament, and he's only a freshman. He really, I mean, Auburn, like I said, I didn't have them going far in the tournament, but I've been really impressed with what I've seen with his scoring ability. Also, Janai Broom. I mean, Janai Broom's not a point guard, but still, like, I've been impressed by what I've seen from him as well. I didn't have Auburn going that far. And again, I'm not an expert when it comes to college basketball, but they've impressed me with what they've been able to do. I would say that. And of course, Cooper Flagg as well, arguably the best player in the entire tournament. And he says, do you feel Miami is hurting themselves by, continuing winning, because if we fall out of the lottery, 2025 draft pick goes to Oklahoma City? I mean, I guess so. Yeah, because, what are the Heat going to do being in the play-in? They're not going to do anything. Yeah, maybe they advance and they get into the playoffs, but they're not going far. But I did talk about this yesterday, Anthony. I don't know if you were still in the stream. I would like to get your thoughts on Kevin Durant maybe going to the Heat. Because that could be a possible destination for him. They did trade Jimmy Butler. You bring in Durant. You still got Bam Adebayo. You still got Tyler Hero. Now, I don't know what you would have to give up to get them, or to get him. But, that could be a move. And with the Heat, I think we'll figure it out. You still got Eric Spoelstra there. You still got Pat Riley. They'll figure it out. So, yeah, I agree with you, but at the same time, I think the Heat could figure things out. All right, so let's get to this game. So, you had the stars show up last night, all over the place. It was a high-scoring affair, although the Warriors, they basically had the lead for the entire game. The Lakers were playing catch-up the whole time. It never really got to within one possession because, the Warriors would hit clutch shots when they needed to. Steph Curry hit his clutch threes when he had to. Jimmy Butler had a couple of clutch shots down the stretch. Draymond Green had a three at one point. Well, he went 2 for 4 from three, but I know he hit one. Kuminga was actually a key player for this game. He had 18 points coming off of the bench, so he was huge. But yeah, the stars, they showed up. Steph Curry had 37 points. LeBron James had 33. So yeah, they had 70 points combined in this game. Austin Reeves, like I said, he was on fire towards the end of the game, but they came up short. Luka, he went 0 for 6 from 3 last night. So yeah, that was not great. Finished with 19 points, but yeah, overall on the day, 6 of 17 from the field, not great. Rui Hachimura had a good game. He had 24 points last night. But yeah, the Warriors picked up the win, 123-116. But yeah, the Lakers, when it seemed like the game was over, the Lakers would, LeBron would hit a 3 or Austin Reeves would hit a 3. They did have a chance to, maybe take advantage of a turnover because they did get the ball back when the Warriors were inbounding. I think they got the steal off of Jimmy Butler, but then they turned the ball over. And, LeBron had a turnover at one point, trying to hit Hachimura down low. Sometimes like in those moments, you want to see LeBron or Luka have the ball, in those big moments, crunch time towards the end. And I know, look, LeBron is one of the greatest passers of all time, but I wanted to see him keep the ball or even give it to Luka, or Austin Reeves. But yeah, that was a costly turnover by LeBron. That was later. That was late in the game. But yeah, it was a very entertaining game. Warriors, since they acquired Jimmy Butler now, they are 20-4. That is impressive. Jimmy Butler didn't have a big game last night. He finished with 11 points. Draymond Green had 11 rebounds last night, so that was, big for the Warriors. Looking at both teams, they shot around the same. Warriors shot 47% from the field. Lakers shot 45% from the field. They made the same amount of shots. Lakers took more shots. From three-point range, Warriors were 45%. Lakers were 38%. They both shot well from the free throw line. Warriors out-rebounded the Lakers 43-45. Yeah, that's like one of the issues that the Lakers could have is, Jackson Hayes being their big man, right? Because if you go up against a Denver in the playoffs, you go up against these better teams that, got these big men that the Lakers don't have, that could be a problem. That could definitely be a problem in the playoffs. But yeah, we're not quite there yet. And, yeah, that was a big win for the Warriors. Another road win last night. The Warriors right now, they have now moved back up to the 5 seed. So right now it's set up for Lakers Warriors, like we said the other day, because the Lakers temporarily were at the 3 and losing that. Now they dropped below Denver again. The Warriors are a half game up on the Grizzlies, but things can change. It is so jam packed in the Western Conference, things can change. But yeah, they picked up another road win because they were on the road against the Grizzlies when they won the other night, and now they play Denver, and that's a home game for them. So yeah, the Warriors, they finish up the year. Nuggets, Rockets, Suns, Spurs, Trailblazers, Clippers. So they could definitely improve their standings. They need Denver to. Winning against Denver, that would be such a huge game, a huge win for them, because that really would narrow the gap. You could see a scenario where the Warriors can, go all the way up to the 3 seed. But we'll see what happens there. And then for the Lakers, we've talked about their schedule a million times, but they got a back-to-back against the Thunder. You got the Mavericks, who are healthy now, mostly healthy. They got Anthony Davis back. They have the Rockets in there, but you do have the Pelicans and the Trailblazers. With all those other games in between that. So I think they should win against the Pelicans. I know, especially with no Zion, no CJ McCollum, they should win that. Because they could pass the Nuggets themselves, the Lakers. They're only a half game behind. But it is so jam packed. Because when you look at the Western Conference right now, everybody between the 3 seed and the 8th seed, everybody is separated by 2.5 games or less. So a lot can happen over the course of the next several days here. But, we are nearing the end here. We got another week. So, it is, it's an exciting time right now. I can't really say the same about the NBA. Right now, actually, when you look at the Eastern Conference standings, not the Mavericks. I don't know why they said the Mavericks, but the Bucks and the Pistons, they both have the same record. They're at the 5 and the 6, so the Pistons can jump over them, and then they could have the 5, and the Bucks could have the 6. This impacts the Knicks the most because that's who they're going to be playing in the first round. So, but looking at the NBA action for tonight, Lakers, they play tonight against the Pelicans. Warriors play against the Nuggets. Cavs against the Spurs. Mavericks against the Clippers. Rockets against the Thunder. Trailblazers against the Bulls. The Suns against the Celtics. The Pistons against the Raptors. Kings against the Hornets. And then the Jazz against the Pacers. So that's for tonight. I actually did want to bring up, I forgot to mention this for the Lakers Warriors game. Another key player for the Warriors last night was Brandon Pajinski. He had 22 points at the half, hit a half-court three-pointer shot at the buzzer. But yeah, he had a good game last night. 28 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, went 10 of 17 from the field, 8 of 10 from 3. But yeah, Draymond Green was 2 points shy of scoring in double digits. But yeah, everybody other than Draymond Green scored in the double digits. And yeah, it was again another entertaining game between LeBron James and Steph Curry, and we could be seeing, at least 4 more when we get to the postseason, because both teams will be there. So yeah, look, I would like to see that happen later in the playoffs, but if you get it in the first round, so be it. Anthony also in the chat says, I would prefer trading for a young player who has a little bit more left. Kevin has been injured way too much to justify giving up young players and for the draft. That is fair. That is a fair point. Can't disagree with that. But, we got to see what a trade package for him looks like. But I would imagine, it's definitely going to take that to get Kevin Durant. And, because the Suns could be in for a complete reset. They could be even trading Devin Booker as well, which I think would be a mistake. I feel like you got to keep him. But Bradley Beal, it's like you can't do anything with him because I believe he does have a no-trade clause. So, but yeah, the Suns have just been a major disappointment. So, but let me know what you guys think, though, about the Lakers-Warriors game from last night. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts were on that. Like I said, we could be seeing them match up in the first round. So that'll be exciting. So before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, gsmcpodcast.net. That is gsmcpodcast.net. So, when we come back from our next break, we will talk about a couple of contract extensions that were given out in the NFL. We'll talk about Trey McBride and Geno Smith's contract extensions. And, yeah, so make sure to stick around for that. And we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about a couple of contract extensions in the NFL that were given out recently. One of them to a quarterback and one of them to a tight end. So we'll talk about Geno Smith first. So it's funny because yesterday I talked about how Geno Smith is not the long-term answer for the Raiders. Because I felt like, at some point they got to take a quarterback. Geno Smith is, getting older now, surprisingly. I mean, he's been in the league since 2013, which I just can't believe how fast his career has gone. And, he did go, years without being a starter. And then he was given a second chance in Seattle and, did play well. Did kind of fall off a little bit. His first full season as the Seahawks starter was his best. And then it kind of, again, it went down the last 2 years. But, now he's traded to the Raiders, reunites with Pete Carroll, and they gave him an extension. So, he's going to be the starter at least through, I think it's through the 2027 season. So, the specifics of the deal, 2-year extension worth up to $85.5 million with $66.5 million guaranteed. And, yeah, he was traded earlier in March, reunites with Pete Carroll. And, the Raiders, they have a lot of work to do, right? Now, it's interesting because what could they do with their first pick, right? We did talk about this. And I think, with Pete Carroll and this new regime, Tom Brady, they want to win right away. So I think you're going to see them take best player available. Maybe if Shedeur Sanders slides down to them, maybe they take him. But I feel like, especially with what Pete Carroll said in his press conference, that, they don't want to start from scratch. They don't want to, they want to get this thing going right away. And you're going to see them take best player available. Now, when we talked about them yesterday, they were not a very good running team. They were ranked last. So I could see a scenario where they take Ashton Jeanty. I think they could. I think you could definitely see that happen. Could they go defense? Maybe. But the offense definitely needs a lot of work. I think you could see them maybe take a receiver with that pick. Who knows? I think we'll see them take. I think we will see them take a playmaker on offense with their first pick because the offense needs a lot of work. Like Brock Bowers is clearly the best player on that offense, and you had Jacoby Myers there. They need more though. They need a lot more. And that running back room needs some work. So I think you add Genty. I'd be happy if I was a Raiders fan. Although, yeah, this team still needs a lot of work. So that's kind of my my thoughts there. But yeah, for Geno Smith, I mean, look, Pete Carroll believes in him. For me, Geno Smith is a guy that, yes, he can win you games, but he's not going to take you to the promised land. I think the Raiders do need to think about their future. They need that young quarterback on this roster. Because, Geno Smith is up there in age. And, the play has kind of declined these last couple of years. So that's kind of where I'm at. Now, I don't think Geno Smith is going to step in next year and he's going to be horrible. No, because I do think, having said what I just said there, he is an upgrade over what the Raiders have had the last couple of years since Derek Carr. With Gardner Minshew last year, he did not play well. I think he's an upgrade. He's definitely an upgrade over Aiden O'Connell. Although O'Connell, the Raiders did win a couple of games towards the end of the year with him as the starter. And, he showed you flashes here or there. But I think he's no more than a backup quarterback that could start here or there. So, and the other thing too is with the Raiders, they play in this tough division. You rank the quarterbacks, he's ranked last. Geno Smith. So, I mean, look, maybe they could pull off some upsets here or there. I mean, Pete Carroll is also a great coach. So, we'll see how it goes. But, good for Geno. He actually, with this contract, has made more money than he did his entire career combined, which is insane to think about. Because, yeah, I mean, he spent this time, he was a starter with the Jets, and then, he was with the Chargers for a little bit. He was with the Giants, but he was just a backup, and now he gets his opportunity with the Seahawks, after they trade Russ. And, the Seahawks, they made the playoffs the first year, and, last year they went 10-7. I think the year before that they went 9-8. So, he finished with a winning record with the Seahawks, and now you get a 2-year extension, so obviously, as a Giant fan, how everything went down in 2017 when he was the guy that replaced Eli when they benched Eli, Giant fans aren't too thrilled with that. And that's, why some are just like, I guess they not really that happy for Geno. But, it is good. It is good for him, though, because it's just been a long journey. And, good for him, though, for, getting that extension. It's been a roller coaster. And he did right back, and now he gets to write that name in for his contract extension, sign his name. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, good for him on getting that extension. But yeah, we'll see how the Raiders look. We got the whole draft. Let's see what they do there, what they do with their pick. Like I said, I think you could see them take Genty. I really do. But then we also had a tight end get a contract extension. This one I love, and that's Trey McBride. Signs a 4-year, $76 million extension, and this takes it through the 2029 season. This includes $43 million guaranteed with $32.5 million. All right, $43 million guaranteed with $32.5 million fully guaranteed. The new contract adds $19 million in average annual salary, and at $76 million, McBride becomes the highest paid tight end, surpassing Travis Kelce's deal and George Kittle's deal. His salary will increase significantly from $5.786 million in 2025 to $19 million per year starting in 2026. Now, last year he only had 2 touchdowns, but he had a career best 111 catches. He had 1,146 receiving yards. Yeah, he didn't score a touchdown until like the second to last game of the season, but he has become one of the best tight ends in the NFL. Under the radar too, because we always talk about Kelce, we talk about Kittle, we talk about Mark Andrews, and obviously Brock Bowers had a big year, but Trey McBride's pretty good, and he's a key playmaker on that offense. The Cardinals do have, good weapons on that offense. With him, you got Marvin Harrison Jr. now going to be entering his second season. James Conner, Kyler Murray at quarterback. I like that deal. I do. He's played really well, since he's entered the league. He was the backup to Zach Ertz. And then, he really took on a stronghold of that number one tight end spot, because then the Cardinals, they let go of Ertz. But yeah, looking at Trey McBride's career stats. So, 2022, 29 receptions, 265 yards and a touchdown. But then 2023, he had 3 touchdowns, 825 receiving yards, 81 receptions. And then last year, 111 receptions, 1,146 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. So, yeah, you want to see him get in the end zone more, but, he's a security blanket for Kyler Murray. And, I think he's going to do well next season. The Cardinals are going to need him to, because they want to take that next step, and he's going to be a big part of that. Cardinals had a disappointing finish to their season. At one point they were in first place in their division, and then, then things fell apart. And, they lost some crucial games down the stretch to the Panthers and to the Rams. And they ended up missing out on the playoffs. I mean, part of that, I think, is you also got to blame the quarterback. They got to improve the defense. But, they, like I said, they have weapons on this offense. They do. It's just, I don't know. It's a Kyler Murray thing. He starts off the season strong, and then, towards the end of the year, he falls off. So, yeah. You got to see what happens there. I know Kyler Murray's been a part of some trade rumors, but, yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere as of right now. But, yeah, congratulations to Geno Smith and Trey McBride on their contract extensions. Let's see if anybody else gets another contract from now till we get to the draft. But, yeah, I mean, things have kind of slowed down in the football world. With everybody pretty much is signed in free agency, although there are still free agents out there, like Aaron Rodgers, who we talk about every single week. And, some of the other guys that are still available. Keenan Allen is still out there. But, yeah, it's kind of slowed down. It's slowed down. It's going to pick up, obviously, when we get to the draft. But, yeah, that's why, like, that first week of free agency is great, because you have so much to talk about, right? There's so much stuff that you could talk about and cover, but then, it kind of slows down. But, figured I'd bring this up. You got two, now a former NFC West player going to the AFC West, but yeah, him and Geno Smith and Trey McBride, figured just put them together and just talk about the extensions. But the Geno Smith extension I was definitely a little surprised by. The Trey McBride one, not so much, just because, young player, it's going to be a cornerstone of this team for a long time. He's really turned himself into one of the best tight ends in the league. So, but, I mean, then again, with Geno, you got Pete Carroll over there. He loves Geno, so, we'll see how it all plays out. But let me know what you guys think about the contract extensions given out to Trey McBride and Geno Smith. How do you feel about them? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our next break, and then when we come back, we will talk about the Dodgers. Are they on track to become the greatest team ever in Major League Baseball? We will get into that conversation when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about the Dodgers once again. And are they on track to become the greatest team ever? Now, this is a bit of an overreaction because the Dodgers are 8-0. And we still have several months of baseball left. We got a long way to go. But they're in mid-season form right now. Right? They are in mid-season form with how they've played over the course of, these first couple weeks of the season here. And, they started earlier than everybody else along with the Cubs. And the Cubs have looked better as of late, now that they're not playing the Dodgers anymore. But the Dodgers, I've been able to, I watched the comeback win against Detroit, and then they just had another comeback win against the Braves the other night. And they're also doing this without Freddie Freeman because Freddie Freeman, re-aggravated that ankle injury, that's surgically repaired ankle, because he had a little, he slipped the other day. So now he's on the 10-day IL. So hopefully, he gets back. They've been doing this without Freddie Freeman for a little bit. But this team is just a machine. And I think I just used that phrase, the machine, the other day when talking about them. But I really do think, and because we were talking about them in our production meeting, I really do think they could beat the single season win total. I really do think that. Now, there are things that can happen that lead to them not doing it. But, you just look around the league. There is such a gap. Now, the National League is tougher. And their division, you look at their division, Padres are off to a great start. The Diamondbacks are a good team with their pitching. The Giants actually have gotten off to a good start as well. And then, unfortunately, you got the Rockies. But their division looks really good so far. But when everything is all said and done, I think this team is going to find themselves back in the World Series. But how long? How long is it going to go? No team has ever no defending World Series champion has started off the season 8-0 before. Hasn't happened. And who knows when the Dodgers are going to lose a game, honestly. Because if you are up by 1, 2, 3 runs, your lead is not safe. Your lead is not safe. Because this team is never out of a game. It's never out of a game. And you could also say 4 or 5 runs. Didn't want to go that far, but it's just, you really have to outscore them. Go back to the playoffs, too. With the Mets and the Yankees, they had big leads in some of the games in the championship series and in the World Series. But, the Dodgers still were lurking. Even in the games that they lost, the Dodgers, in the championship game and in the championship series and in the World Series. And they take advantage of mistakes that you make. But yeah, they have a deep team. I think really, for me, why I think they could do it is not just because of the lineup. I think it's just because of the amount of depth that they have with their pitching. We saw up close, especially, being a Yankee fan, how deep their bullpen really is. You basically can have your starter pitch 4 innings, and then you're set for the rest of the game. And with their rotation, if their rotation can stay healthy, you go into the postseason, you could throw out whoever you want. And Roki Sasaki didn't have a great first start, but you figure he's going to get it going. Ohtani's going to come back. So you got them, you got Glasnow, you got Snell, Dustin May, Clayton Kershaw. You got all of these guys. You have so much pitching. And they have the resources, right? With deferring money. That's why they're able to do all this. And, obviously, like, watching the games, I'm just shaking my head because I'm like, man, this team is just so good. It really is. And you could say I'm glazing them, whatever, but, I mean, come on. This team is really good. Now, like I said, it was a debate. Like, are they the greatest team already? No, they're not. But they got to get there first. If they beat the Mariners win total, or if they right around the win total, if they repeat as champions, they have a great postseason. I mean, I think you got to consider it. I mean, obviously, I haven't watched as much baseball compared to maybe if someone older than me has watched, that was there for the 90s Yankees and, all the other teams prior to that. Some of these other teams, I would say, for me, the best team that I've seen, I'm going to take the Yankees out of it because I would obviously say 2009. The best team, and you could make the argument this team is better than the 2009 team. The best team that I've seen, non-Yankee bias, is the 2018 Red Sox. The 2018 Red Sox, I say this all the time, when you talk about the greatest baseball teams of my generation, that is the greatest baseball team that I have ever seen. 108 wins. I mean, you got to remember, the Yankees won 100 games that year, and the Red Sox beat them in 4 games. They played in the first round of the playoffs. Well, technically the second round, because the Yankees were a wild card team. They had to win the wild card game, and then they played in the division series. But, I mean, that team was so good. With you had Chris Sale and David Price and Nathan Eovaldi at the top of the rotation. The lineup with Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts is also on this Dodgers team. You had Mookie Betts. You had Rafael Devers. You had J.D. Martinez. You had Xander Bogaerts. Andrew Benintendi when he used to be good. That was, and then you also had Craig Kimbrell at the back end of that rotation, or bullpen. That was an unbelievable team. That was. I'll give the Red Sox credit. That was I'm not going to hate. That was the best team that I saw of my lifetime, non-Yankee bias. It really was. Mookie Betts has been a part of. If this Dodgers team ends up being, like that, which seems that way, and look, they won the World Series last year. And that was when the rotation was in shambles. And Shohei Ohtani was hurt in the World Series. I mean, again, Freddie Freeman and Teoscar Hernandez were the key players in the lineup in that World Series. Dodgers, they won because of those two guys and Freddie Freeman. And, obviously Freddie Freeman. But and the pitching and the bullpen. That's why they won. And they capitalized off of mistakes made by the Yankees. It's a combination of all those things. But, they definitely can. They definitely have the capability of doing it. And tonight, because they were off last night, they will be taking on the Phillies. And that's going to be a good series. The Phillies, they've gotten off to a good start. They're 5-1. You got Yamamoto against Jesus Luzardo tonight. That's on Apple TV. So if you have Apple TV, you'll be able to watch it. Then you got Roki Sasaki tomorrow against Aaron Nola. And then on Sunday, you got Tyler Glasnow against Christopher Sanchez. So I'm surprised it's not the Sunday Night Baseball matchup. It's going to be Cardinals-Red Sox. Surprised. I feel like that should have been Sunday Night Baseball. But, yeah. Will the Dodgers lose this weekend? I am going to say they do. They got to lose at some point. They're not going 162-0. It's not happening. It's not happening, guys. That is impossible. But it's not impossible to win 116 games because it's been done before. I think this team could do it. Now, I think the most wins in a single season combined with the postseason, the Yankees have it at 125. They could also do that. If they do all of that and they repeat as World Series champions, for me, they would be the greatest team. In my lifetime, they'd be the greatest team. But that's how I feel. Let me know what you guys think, though. Do you think the Dodgers are on track to being the greatest team ever? Is it a bit of an overreaction just because of the start they've gotten off to? I mean, it definitely is just because it's 8 games, and it's 8 games out of 162. But, again, they're in midseason form right now. And they won the World Series last year. So I don't think it's really that out there. Because they got great players all over the place. They're a great team. They're a great team. And, yeah, I mean, it does annoy me with how they're doing business with the money deferrals. But like the torpedo bats, it's legal. Everybody else can do it. So that's my thoughts on it. So we are going to take now our final break of the show. And then when we come back, we will talk about the Chargers. We will go over their season, how they performed, and what they've done in the offseason, what they could possibly do for the draft. We will get into all that when we come back from our final break of the show. So for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to get into talking about the Chargers and their season and what they've done in the offseason so far. And this was Jim Harbaugh's first season as the head coach of the Chargers, and it went well. They exceeded expectations. I had them winning 9 games. And, well, I forgot to mention the Raiders. I had them winning 8 games. They won 4. So that, that shows you how much I know about football. But because I know some people definitely say that. With the Chargers, I had them at 9 wins and they won 10. So I was close. I said they could be a sneaky good team. They could maybe make the postseason. And that's exactly what happened. They won 10 games and they made the postseason. Now, the playoff game did not go very well, but we'll get into that. We will get into that. Now, they bring in Jim Harbaugh. They did, make some changes with the offense, right? Austin Eckler left in free agency. Mike Williams went to the Jets. Keenan Allen went to the Bears. So they pretty much gutted the offense. And, Quentin Johnson, they were expecting big things out of him in year 2, and he definitely looked better, a lot better than he did his rookie season. Joshua Palmer, who was hurt. But they did draft Ladd McConkey from Georgia, and he was obviously their best receiver. So to kind of look at how the Chargers season unfolded, the regular season, got off to a 2-0 start. They beat the Raiders, and they beat up on the Panthers. And that was also behind running the football because J.K. Dobbins, who they brought in, and Gus Edwards reunited them with Greg Roman, who used to be with the Ravens. So, yeah, it was Ravens backfield on the Chargers. But then they did lose to the Steelers. They lost their next two games. They lost to the Steelers 20-10. Justin Herbert did get hurt in that game, so maybe if he doesn't get hurt, that game would have been a different outcome. But yeah, they lost that. And then they lost to the Chiefs 17-10, a close game there. So they went into the bye week at 2-2. Then they came out of the bye. They beat Bo Nix. They were up 23-0 going into the fourth quarter, and the Broncos did make it a little bit closer. They did score 16 points in the fourth quarter, but yeah, they did lose that. But then they also lost to the Cardinals on that Monday night game. I'll be honest, didn't watch a single second of it because it was on ESPN Plus, and I don't have ESPN Plus. And you're probably like, what are you doing? Well, I am paying for a couple of other streaming services, so I do have access to SiriusXM, so I was able to listen to the final call at the end. But yeah, they lost 17-15 on a game-winning field goal. So yeah, at that point they were 3-3. But then they won their next four straight. Their next four games. I meant to say I combined. They won four straight with their next four games. They won four straight. They beat the Saints 26-8. They beat the Browns 27-10. They beat the Titans 27-17, and they beat the Bengals 34-27. The Bengals game was on Sunday Night Football. That was a very entertaining game. Bengals, they were down big, came back, but they weren't able to take the lead. They missed some field goals down the stretch there by Evan McPherson. And, J.K. Dobbins scored the go-ahead touchdown, and the Chargers won 34-27. They did lose to the Ravens 30-23, the Harbaugh Bowl. But then they beat the Falcons in a low-scoring game, 17-13. I mean, they were helped by Kirk Cousins throwing 4 interceptions in the game. But then they lost their next two. They lost to the Chiefs, 19-17 on a doink game-winning field goal. And then they lost 40-17 to the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield throwing 4 touchdowns in that game. But then they won their final 3 games. They beat the Broncos in a comeback win on Thursday night, 34-27. They really beat up on the Patriots in the NFL Network triple header on December 28th, 40-7, and then they beat the Raiders 34-20. And Justin Herbert had a good year, 23 touchdowns to 3 picks, 3,800 yards passing. J.K. Dobbins in the regular season, he had 905 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns. Did get hurt, but he was able to come back for the playoff game. We'll talk about that in a second. Quinn Johnston, again, had a better season than he did his rookie year. 711 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. The drops were still a little bit of a problem. But yeah, Ladd McConkey, though, 1,149 receiving yards, 82 receptions, and 7 touchdowns. He was the best player on offense outside of Justin Herbert. But yeah, they won 34-20, and they made the playoffs, and they went up against the Texans, and everybody was all over the Chargers. And I knew when that was the case, I said, that is not good. That is not good that everybody is taking the Chargers. Everybody is disrespecting the Texans. Now, they were up 6-0 going into the second quarter, but then things changed, right? Things changed. C.J. Stroud, there was that bobbled snap. He picked it up. He completed the pass, a long pass to, I think it was Nico Collins, and that was a momentum shifter. And Justin Herbert was not good in this game. He went 14 of 32 for 242 yards, 1 touchdown, which was on like a 3rd and forever to Ladd McConkey. But he threw 4 interceptions in the game. Now, all of them were not his fault, but turned the ball over 4 times. Yeah, Ladd McConkey was unreal. Almost had 200 yards receiving. Had 9 receptions for 197 yards and a touchdown. The Chargers could not run the ball in this game. The defense did get after C.J. Stroud. They sacked him 3 times, but yeah, the Texans had their way, especially in the ground game. They ran the ball for 168 yards. Nico Collins had a good game, but yeah, not good. There was a pick 6 in the game. That was by Eric Murray. And yeah, Justin Herbert really hurt it. 3 interceptions throughout the whole year, and then he threw 4 picks in this one game. But, the Chargers, they were not, I didn't expect them to make a deep playoff run. I thought that maybe they could advance just because, we weren't overly impressed with the Texans throughout the season, right? But, the Texans, they beat up on the Chargers and they got the win. So that's how the Chargers season ended. They went 10-7. Had a good divisional record. I mean, they went 4-2, and the 2 losses were against the Chiefs. So, but looking at their rankings on both offense and defense. So offensively, they were 11th in points per game. So that's pretty good. But they were 20th in total yards per game, 19th in passing yards per game, and 17th in rushing yards per game. And then defensively, this Chargers defense was not good in 2023. And I knew when Harbaugh came in, things were going to change. So their defense, they ranked first in points allowed per game, 11th in yards allowed per game. They were 7th in passing yards allowed per game. They were 14th in rushing yards allowed per game, and they struggled to stop the run in the playoff game against the Texans. They ranked 7th in sacks, and they were 8th in interceptions. Defense, I mean, like I said, the defense was solid for them. And, the defense did the best they could keeping them in the game, but, the Chargers just could not generate any offense. And that's where they needed to improve, is the receiving core. The receiving core is what they needed to improve upon. Again, looking at the stats, we talked about Herbert, we talked about Dobbins and the receivers, but looking at the defensive side of the ball, Derwin James, 5.5 sacks. Khalil Mack had 6 sacks. They brought him back. They did release Joey Bosa. You also had 6 sacks from Bud Dupree. Joey Bosa had 5. But yeah, Joey Bosa went to Buffalo. Tariq Still, he had 4 interceptions on the season. That led the team. And, looking at what they've done in the offseason so far, they signed Tyler Conklin, brought him in, the tight end. They brought in Najee Harris to replace J.K. Dobbins. They brought in Mekhi Becton, Andre James, a center. They brought in a couple of tackles in Naquan Jones and Deshaun Hand. Dante Jackson, they brought him in. The corner, Tony Jefferson, they re-signed him. They re-signed Khalil Mack. They re-signed Denzel Perriman. Re-signed Jalen Reagor. So, they were busy in the offseason. And they did bring back Mike Williams. Now, I still am holding out hope that they are going to bring back Keenan Allen because I feel like they should. Keenan Allen is still unsigned, but I would like to see Keenan Allen back with the Chargers. I really would. So we got to wait and see what happens there. But yeah, I would like to see Keenan Allen back with Herbert. But yeah, they desperately need that. And the Chargers, if they don't bring back Keenan Allen, I think, wide receiver is a position they could definitely address at some point. Right? I do think they could do that. The offensive line, like I said, they have addressed that, in free agency, bringing Mekhi Becton, who was good when, he got moved into the interior part of the offensive line. You got 2 tackles in, Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. So, Herbert's good at the tackle spot. The interior of the offensive line, you improve that. Running back is definitely something that I could see. Well, actually, then again, they did bring in Najee Harris. But they could still draft a running back. That could happen at some point. Defensively, maybe they go out and they try to, add a pass rusher, in the draft. Defense, maybe linebacker. Yeah, I could see that. But, you're set with tackles. You're set at quarterback. Now it's all about, getting more playmakers, I think, on offense. And I think, continue to build up that defense. But, this is going to be a very good team. I do believe that. Jim Harbaugh, like I said, did a very good job his first year as the head coach of the Chargers. And this AFC West, I mean, we're going to continue to talk about it because obviously we got 2 more teams left. We'll get to the Broncos and the Chiefs next week. But this is a very good division. The coaches that we got, and the quarterbacks, it's a good division. It is. It's what we expected it to be a couple of years ago. I mean, obviously Geno Smith is now with the Raiders, and he's unfortunately I rank him last amongst the quarterbacks, but really the head coaches are the story. Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, and Pete Carroll. I mean, that really is one heck of a division for coaches. But let me know what you guys think though about the Chargers and their season, the off season. How would you grade their off season? Let me know in the comments. That is pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well on the network. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to everything wherever you get your podcasts. Also, if you're on the go, make sure to check us out on Spotify and, like I said, wherever you get your podcasts. And yeah, appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll be back again on Monday, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Make sure to tune in for the Final Four. This weekend, NBA season is winding down. Baseball is in full effect, and maybe Aaron Rodgers will sign with the team when we come back on Monday, or sign with the Steelers. But we're still waiting on that. That's not going to happen. So with that being said, we're done here. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys on Monday. Enjoy the games this weekend. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of